Today is Future of Healthcare and AI. And let's get started. We have some incredible panelists today. We have Misty Jones, who, as you have all recently met, is the CEO of Stanford Healthcare Tri-Valley. We have Archana Dubey. She is the founder of Arch Accelerator. And we have Neil Daswani, who is the co-director of the Stanford Cybersecurity Program. And I'm very excited to welcome the three of you. Thank you for making the time to come and share what the future holds for healthcare. So my question to each of you, just in 2 to 3 minutes, if you could introduce yourselves and share, what will healthcare look like in 5 years from your vantage point?
And I'll share the mic. Well, thank you, everybody. Gosh, what a tremendous blessing today has been for our community, just seeing the way that everybody is coming together from different aspects and a very holistic approach to healthcare and management of well-being and personal choices. So if I get back to where I think healthcare is going to be in 5 years, I think what we're going to start to see is healthcare right now is very fragmented. So when you're going through your healthcare journey as a patient, it's very episodic focused. It might be your primary care, or if you have an outlying condition that needs a referral to a specialist, or if you are potentially elderly and have a complex care issue, you may have 5 specialists and a primary care and a care coordinator. But all of those systems are really disparate and not necessarily connected in a way that is meaningful or easy for the patient to navigate. So where I see us going, and particularly where I think AI is going to be a game changer for us, is really changing the way that we deliver healthcare from episodic or very isolated incidents in healthcare to really more about a continuous model of care. So thinking about how do we start to bring that all together. Some of that is pulling together information. Right now, information and health records are very complex. So if you think the human time that it takes to really start to bridge all of that information together in a meaningful way for the patient, that's really challenging. It's time intensive, there's just human error, and we have disparate systems. AI is going to be a game changer for that. It's going to really bring all of that together in a way that's meaningful for us, and I think that we're going to see a real transformation in how care is delivered, and we'll really start to get more toward a continuous model of care, and thinking about what is our wellness is almost just like as the work that we do or the life that we live, as opposed to, oh, I've got this one thing right now and I need to do this one thing. It's really going to be about all of that.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'll begin with, can you hear me? Okay. I will begin with the background that you asked. So I'm a physician by training. Have done a 360 on healthcare as a practicing clinician, as a population health leader for a lot of self-insured employers, still serve them. Have been the chief medical officer for a large health insurance company called United Healthcare. Have been in whatever chief officer role in several startups. So have seen healthcare from all vantage points, and have been an innovator in that space too. When I talked to Rena about, I think about a month and a half ago, we decided that I left my corporate unemployment to really come in and create an accelerator that is focused on taking on what is unraveling in front of us. We are at an inflection point in which all the stakeholders of healthcare, whether it's patient, providers, Misty, like folks, you, need to join hands to really know what healthcare looks like in the next 5 years. And I would answer that question with the fork on the road that we are seeing. If you do it right, I can see all the optimism that you are talking about will happen. A longitudinal care, a web of care that covers each one of us in a meaningful way, the right time of insights. AI and the care providers and the system has the power to do that. But if we do not do things right, it will unravel in a way that will further fragment care and possibly get the wrong kind of care for each individual. So I'm a I want to be pragmatic around this, but I also want to be cautionary about the tool that we have just gotten in our hands, and the power of it can be really, really good in the next 5 years. And actually happening right now, we saw in Utah, AI is prescribing medications. Doctronics is a tool that they have piloted just this year without a clinician in the loop, is prescribing 190 medications for people. So we really need to be thoughtful in thinking, is AI doing the right things? And I really like the wayful effort that you're doing. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to the security side of it.
Yeah, sure. I'm Neil Deswani. I am a technologist by background. I spent my early career at Google, after which I started a company that helped protect people from malicious ads. And then started, after we helped build appropriate defenses into Twitter, I started serving as a chief security officer for many public companies. So let me see what I can do to bridge the optimism with some of the practical challenges. With regards to the optimism, we are living at a very unique time in history. It has never been the case that all 200 million proteins have had their 3D structures predicted. Diseases happen when proteins fold in the wrong ways. And so, Demis Hassabis at Google DeepMind, inventing that to, with a broad team, where there's now 3 million researchers around the planet using this database, hopefully will be able to give us better drugs in the future. So I think that there's all kinds of good reasons to be very optimistic. Now, Rena, you asked about 5 years. 5 years is a long time, especially in today's cycles. Things have never been moving so fast in technology, in society. There are a lot of things that can go wrong. So for those of you that have heard about some of my past work in cybersecurity or AI, I've been using AI to build cybersecurity systems for the past 20 years, but it's the first time that now people are starting to secure the AI. And with regards to achieving good outcomes in the medical field, one of the things that we have to place as paramount in these systems is the characteristic of trustworthiness. We're hearing that medications are starting to get prescribed without humans in the loop, and can we trust the system that's doing that? Trustworthiness is a very big goal. There's a number of other goals that you typically need to technically achieve, whether it's accuracy or safety or security or whatnot. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We have seen a lot of things go wrong. People have launched all kinds of chatbots that have had to get taken down. There's hospitals that have released large language models to try to communicate with patients a heck of a lot better. And there's been some interesting findings. One of the findings is that these models typically tend to be more empathetic than most doctors, for better or worse. But there have also been issues where these large language models in communicating with patients have started commenting on prognoses and diagnoses. And just because something's a large language model, we have to have some technical humility in realizing that this thing is just a large language model. It's not a therapist, it's not a doctor. We have scores of people that are going to ChatGPT for medical advice, and my guidance is, trust your doctors, trust your hospitals. They will work with us to roll out systems that are trustworthy and safe. And so my hope is that through collaborations like this, we'll be able to achieve all the optimistic outcomes while mitigating the risks.
Thank you so much, Neil, for that. I had some questions prepared, but I'm going to ask a different one. I hope that's okay.
You always keep us on our toes, Rena.
I'm looking at this panel and I'm thinking, you tell Archana what you need. She goes and finds companies with executives who will deliver, and Neil makes sure that, can I say China on here? That no one breaks the code and creates trouble, right? This is actually a dream team in some sense. And I didn't think of that when I was putting the panel together. So with that said, the question that I have, and Misty, this is for you, as you are the leader of one of the most incredible institutions, healthcare systems in the country, at the leading edge. Innovation defines what we do. What would your dream changes be in the organization? If you could tell Archana, this is what I need, so these are the departments where we can have the efficiency, what would that be?
So I'm a nurse by clinical background. I've been in healthcare for 22 years, and I've seen the evolution of the electronic medical record. I started in the ICU, like creating graphs and dots and tracking vital signs and trying to connect that all together for my patient to help tell the story. So then we introduced this electronic medical record of the EMRs, and in the hope that we would be able to have a more complete record of our patients. And I think the challenge that brought with this is now we have so much data and we are spending so much time managing this product that was supposed to revolutionize healthcare that I think the last estimate that I saw was that clinicians are spending up to 40% of their time with the electronic medical record as opposed to with the patient. So the technology, and I think the opportunity, is for us to take some of the administrative burden off of our people who are working with patients on a daily basis and give them that time back to spend with their patient and develop those relationships, to develop that trust, and most importantly, make sure that we're actually being human-centered in the way that we're approaching their care, that we understand their concerns, we understand their perspective, and we're bringing that all together in a way that is meaningful.
I love that, thank you. It's giving back the doctors the time to actually do what they were trained to do, and the nurses time to do what they were trained to do. Archana, my question for you. You've created this accelerator with one mission. You want to find the right companies to fund that will help create this new future that we are all envisioning together. And we know for a fact that the future never unfolds the way we want it to. There's going to be curveballs, and there's going to be unexpected surprises, and of course there's going to be unexpected crises. With that said, how are you deciding who to fund? What areas of healthcare to fund? And how are you making sure that AI of the companies that you fund isn't going to be potentially lethal for the organizations that it serves?
Yes, absolutely. And I love this example, and we have a company for you. So let's look at the biggest group of people who are using AI today is the clinician and the hospitals. So the adoption of AI is nearly 66% in the clinicians, and I'm counting the doctors, the nurses, and everybody. Whether it's for clinical decision-making, automation of things, it's happening. It's real. The future is here. It's not in 5 years. Second is 86% of the hospitals are adopting AI for their efficiencies. So it is happening today. And some of the companies that we are incubating, funding, and taking go-to-market are actually directly targeting into a few of the use cases that I will talk about. And I think those are relevant for Stanford and the likes. And I would say that the patients are actually the last leg that is taking on because of the trust issue, the bias issue, the security issues. They're worried about the garbage in and garbage out effect of the Gen AI. 36% of average individuals are using the ChatGPTs and Claude Health kinds. If somebody is digital health user, it's up to 60%. So that's kind of the stats. We are in the future right now. How the companies are helping is really the burden, the clinical burden. Why are the clinicians taking on AI as fast? Because it helps get them to decision faster. So it reduces their clinical burden, the work burden, and I was in those shoes, Misty, doing 40% of my administrative time at 2 a.m. in the morning in my bed writing notes, responding to inbox. I had inbox PTSD as a clinician. So it's a real thing. The healer is burnt out, and so we need to remove the burden by providing the tools that automate some of the things that they do administratively, but also allows them insights proactively. So the proactive insights and proactive care is being also powered up. So think of the company that I was giving an example. It's focused in ICU, it's focused in nurses. And they have created models using video LM, or video language models, and multiple sensors that they ingest, and they can pretty accurately, with the F-score of, let's say, 90+%, can tell if somebody's having a respiratory distress, or somebody's having a bed sore risk, or somebody's having a fall risk, or somebody's having a UTI. Without checking the urine test, they can tell with a pretty high accuracy that this person is having UTI. That is the power of AI, where it can see longitudinal data on one individual and longitudinal data of thousands and millions of lives, and collectively give you that proactive insight that reduces that administrative burden, nurse running into the room, running out of the room, through all of those alerts that come through. So that's just one example of what is possible. And those are the kind of impact companies that are either automating the administrative burden, increasing the predictive analytics, increasing the radiology reading, because the eye fatigue happens in the clinicians who are reading the x-rays and mammograms and others. So those are tools that are developed right now that's already adopted at a system level. So 86% of the hospitals are using it today. So that's kind of my 2 cents on, yes, we are incubating, yes, we are shipping out these products to reduce the administrative and physical burden.
May I ask a quick follow-up?
Yes.
What percentage, or could you share any numbers in terms of deployment? Because traditionally, as everybody knows, healthcare has been a laggard in
Yes.
adoption of technology.
Yes.
And I'm highly encouraged
Yeah.
to see uptake. If you're in the field, what are you seeing?
So the adoption in adoption of AI in any vertical, healthcare is the third one. So we've had the fintech and consumer, and then in healthcare, this is the first time healthcare has taken the third spot.
And is it efficiency driven?
It is efficiency driven, also it is slightly different. So it's burden driven. So the clinicians, if they can get in the fingertips that knowledge that I have a 55-year-old woman who has sleep problems, what is the right kind of medication that I could give? And if it is grounded in the right training model, it can actually give a result rather quickly than them going into UpToDate or other sources that they use today. Okay. So that's kind of like fast tracking it. And I would also say that patients are adopting because they have lost trust in the system because of the fragmented thing that Misty just talked about, is that they're not able to either get expedited care because the insurance delay happened, and yes, I worked in the insurance companies, or clinician appointment is too far away, or the medication is too expensive to care for. So all of these things have led to patients to go latch on to Claude Health or ChatGPT Health. So those are other kind of undercurrents that are driving it.
Thank you. So Neil, Archana's got a company that's prescribing medications without doctor involvement, or doctors saying...
Disclaimer,
or,
that's not my company, but yes.
I could hear your heartbeat. Neil's like, oh my God. Talk to us about what do they need to think about that the clinician has gone in and said, you know, old woman can't sleep, tell me what to place order. Where can that go wrong?
So thank you for asking. For those of you that know me, Marina knows me quite well, a bunch of people in the audience know me quite well, I'm a very paranoid. And I'm, maybe after you, right?
No, you have to be. It's part of the job.
That's part of the job,
yes.
That's right. So I think on one hand, given the fact that there's so many people that don't have access to the health care that they deserve, I think there's a lot of benefits in making these systems accessible when there aren't better options. And my hope, and this is a hope, my hope is that in most cases, the right things will happen and the right treatments will be given. That said, all of this tech is new. And in order to go from a prototype to a production system, given that generative AI systems can hallucinate, they can make things up if they don't know the answer, they'll be very confident about what they make up when they don't know the answer. It's really important to do large-scale synthetic evaluations, right, where you generate tons and tons of cases, and you test the models to see whether or not they are generating the right answers. Traditionally in AI, you used to have to come up with human-labeled data sets, where a human tells the computer, this is the input, this is the right answer, this is the, these are the symptoms, this is the right thing to prescribe. And what had happened about 3 years ago is that AI researchers figured this is going too slow. And so we're right in the midst of an interesting set of developments in the world where things are now moving much, much faster, but perhaps with a little bit less accuracy. And while I am a technologist at heart, and I love it when technology brings the right things to market and the right solutions to patients and whatnot, we also just have to be very mindful because as part of, being one of the folks that helped advance social media technology, we all thought we were doing the wonderful right things to connect the world. And what actually happened is that the algorithms had the incentive to just keep giving more of the same to users and feeding their confirmation bias instead of giving them access to other things. And now we have a society that's divided in part because of this. So if any of us think we know what we're doing, I would approach that with a little bit of caution and say, you know what, let's have, and I'm going to introduce a term here. The term is technical humility. I know, Rena, in many of the other aspects, you talk about the importance of humility in so many other aspects of life. I would suggest that we have technical humility as we go into these systems. I would look at each of these deployments. I think it's wonderful that startups are innovating, but I would move into each of these deployments with the same scientific skepticism that you have when you read a new paper that's potentially going for publication at a top conference. So again, a lot of optimism, but let's just be mindful that and have that technical humility that we may not all know what we're doing yet.
What guardrails would you recommend Misty's team absolutely have in place today?
So guardrails are very important, and I think what kind of guardrails you use depends upon what kind of technology you use. If you're using large language models to communicate with doctors or patients or whomever, we have to keep in mind that the kind of guardrails that we need to have, especially if we're having patients, for instance. Patients could ask any question under the sun. They could ask, how do I build a bomb? They could ask, how do I harm somebody else? They could ask anything in the world. But when large language models are being used for medical applications, I think it's very important to sandbox and guardrail what that LLM is allowed to talk about, comment on, reason on, etc., and do all of that testing before a system gets deployed. One of the main challenges that we have with this kind of technology is that it's not like traditional computer programming where you have a bunch of inputs and you have a bunch of deterministic tests. Instead, you give the same input to the system, it'll give you 3 different answers if you ask it the same question 3 different times. And so we really have to do a whole bunch of evaluation when we initially develop a system and put some prompts and guardrails and constitutions around the systems we build. What we need to do is say in our initial tests, just have a lot of measurement and data that this model is performing correctly 50% of the time. Then we need to keep improving all the prompts, we need to improve the system, we need to check it again, we need to get that to 60, 70, 80, 90, up until we're at like 90 or 95%, when we can feel comfortable then widely releasing it and saying this is not an alpha anymore. So I think those are some things to keep in mind.
Can I comment on that? That's part of, I love it, by the way. That's part of our vetting process before we even onboard any of our clients in our accelerator. So one of the things that we do is want to see their synthetic data work and then see the outcome of that. And then the other aspect that we look at is responsible AI, explainability, because healthcare requires explainability, believe it or not, and then the performance. Exactly what guardrails have you put in place? What's your sandbox experiences? What's your hallucination rate? What is your percentage that you're performing? All of these are intake forms. Like it has to be that is the reason why I quit my day, like corporate unemployment, and came into this, because if we don't take the seat on the table, this can go sideways, and which is definitely a concern.
Absolutely, thank you. Last question. We are living in times of relentless change, and each of you is a leader and a definer of what comes next. How are you keeping up? What is your roster of readings, or what can you teach those that are watching you in terms of what should leaders be doing by looking at what you are doing in terms of keeping up, and what are you doing with your organizations as well?
So for me, it's just really trying to understand what's happening. And, I've taken classes and been certified just for AI and digital health transformation, but that's kind of a snapshot in time. And even though that was less than a year ago, it's probably outdated in thinking about where we're going. So it's a constant, so I have a Google alert on my Chrome that just kind of pulls in anything related to healthcare and AI. So at least I'm getting some of the updated articles that are out there, so I can at least have awareness. I'm trying to be really intentional about following a lot of the think tanks in healthcare, as far as Kaufman Hall, Vizient, Advisory Board, and what are they saying about AI, because they're kind of bringing back that 30,000-foot view and that picture, the direction that we want to go, or is this the way that we should? And then, that's probably the piece that kind of keeps me up at night, thinking about, we've got processes in AI that we've got clinicians in the loop, clinicians not in the loop, and then what does that mean for our clinicians and their own mastery of their practice? AI is really taking a lot of those lower level, kind of the rote tasks, but those are also foundational for how a clinician learns and how do we start to understand patient care. So if AI takes that portion of it, then how do we make sure that we've got a workforce, and it's probably a little bit hypothetical, but how do I make sure that I've got a workforce that understands that what AI is doing is able to provide the right supervision, but most importantly, how do we make sure that our workforce also has the ability to jump in when something happens, like let's say there's a major earthquake and then all of a sudden we have no power. AI is not going to help us then we have to go back to all of our downtime charts, and we've eroded a skill set that might be critical in a time like that. So just kind of thinking about those things.
Thank you, Misty. Archana.
Yes. One is, of course, joining conversations like this. I think it is important for people to become aware that either you adopt AI and learn the skills, or you'll be left behind. It's just the reality of the time. So keeping up my skills, like Claude Code is my best friend, and creating agents and all of those things are like a continuous skill building process. It's a muscle that we all have to build. The other thing is, I've always been curious in healthcare, as you could see, like going from trail of impact. I'm very curious where AI is going next. We have kind of learned to analyze data that has been human created in the language LLM space. But that's all has been observed by humans and written in the books and documents and data. There is a human bias that comes in it. How do we go beyond the LLMs? And that is the space I'm very curious and innovating and incubating, which is in the physical AI space. Because our human body gives tremendous amount of sensor data, and 97% of the sensor data gets unused. Imagine that in the ICU, in your Oura rings, in your Apple Watch, 97% of that is wasted. And we have a shallow data problem. And I'm super curious in how do we now recognize and be able to tap into the energy that human body gives out in the form of electromagnetic, gate, and others. And in the electromagnetic, just like an example, our heart gives out electromagnetic stimulation. We collect that data and make just squiggly lines out of it. But there could be so much more that sensor can give us than just the squiggly lines in a cardiovascular diagnosis. And that's something that we have pressure tested in an environment of physical AI that has been phenomenal. So that is where I'm going next, is going to the physical AI space in which we understand the human body in a way that is beyond language and go into the energetic fields.
Thank you. Neil?
So to build off of what Arjuna was saying, large language models are really just the beginning. Well, so first of all, before language models, there were tons of supervised and unsupervised types of models. There's large reasoning models, there's models for just doing math, there's models that are called world models that focus on spatial intelligence. So if we do want to have assistive devices that can move around in a robotics kind of way and not end up falling over people or falling over themselves, there's definitely a lot more to learn about all the different kinds of models that are getting built. And I think to your question about how to stay up to speed, the speed at which things are moving, the amount of information that's out there is just staggering. At the very base level, I have myself signed up for a whole bunch of AI newsletters. Then I have AI that I use to summarize all the AI newsletters. And my poor assistant Angie, she knows I try to make use of every moment of my time. So if I'm on the treadmill or taking a walk around the neighborhood, I'm listening to a YouTube brief. The Daily AI Brief, for instance, is one that I like. But what I've observed is that there's a huge dichotomy in between the information that's coming out of the high-tech world and pretty much where the rest of the world is at. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. But I think with regards to keeping up, regards to all this keeping up, one of the things that I just wanted to emphasize is that the sources of the information that you get is so critical. Rena, you've also talked about the importance of this, right? So if you end up training your brain and your neural network on hype, then you can end up going off in wrong directions yourself, and you can end up, if you're leading an organization, leading that organization in the wrong direction. So especially at this time, I've served in a whole bunch of operating roles as a chief security officer in the past. One of the reasons that I'm not taking on a chief operating role right now is, there's a bunch of reasons, but one of them is because I think we're in this state where we should be like, I don't know, and we need to figure out all the right answers going forward. And when I train myself, for instance, when I'm developing a course for Stanford Online, for instance, we developed an AI security course this past October, so I made sure to train myself not just from the best scientific publications I could find, but we brought in people like Sam Altman and Nicholas Carlini and Heather Atkins from OpenAI and Google and Anthropic, the people that are at the center the top of the leadership in all these organizations, to make sure that I also learn from them, and then whatever I learn from them, we take these interviews that we do with them and we make it part of our courses, so that everybody else can also see those data points in addition to the additional data points that we provide from a scientific and technical basis. But I think that the source, the provenance of information that you gather is just so critical, and those are the kinds of things that I keep in mind when I seek to just keep up with what's going on in the world in AI.
We're definitely in very interesting times. Never been more exciting or more challenging, is my perspective. And it is unfolding every day. There is something new that unfolds every day. So I hope those of you who are watching us will continue this conversation online. You can find all three leaders at healcircle.org. We've created profiles for you so people can find you. And I'll leave you with this thought. AI will do for us based on what we feed it. And so we are creating the future with how we interact with it, how we roll it out. And so all the leaders that are out there listening to this, we created something called World AI Forum for AI for Good. I urge you to pause, to ground yourself, as Neil pointed out, instead of racing, because there's a lot of conversation about we have to race, we have to win this race. But let's make sure that we are going to win this race in a way that it doesn't destroy humanity. It's very important that we put humans first in this race to win. With that said, thank you for joining the Future of Healthcare and AI at the HEAL Circle at HEALFest. Thank you so much.